Hi, everyone. Have you ever been in a situation and you thought, why isn't this part of our university's culture? Or have you taken an elective and thought, wow, that was fantastic, but why isn't there more? Have you ever considered how you can have those extra classes added or how you can make that change? Let me tell you about a story from students at Acadia University who asked those questions. They asked why the nutrition students didn't have more of a role in the collaboration between the nutrition and the athletics department, and then they made that happen. And part of that also drove the hiring of a new professor who specializes in sports nutrition. Now I'm going to be speaking specifically about sports nutrition, but really these principles could apply to any topic or any program. Now it's not necessarily as easy as going to your dean and saying, hey, if you could just go ahead and hire a new professor, that'd be great. And while you're at it, add some of those courses you're really interested in. But it's not as impossible as you think with just a little bit of hard work and a little bit of passion. Now, as nutrition students, we understand the value of food and the positive and negative effects that can have on your athletic performance. Athletes want to perform better, they want to improve, and they want to be at the best of their game, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge of how to do that with food. A study done by an Acadia University student found that the top 3 sources of our varsity athletes for nutrition information is the internet, friends, and coaches. So let's just take a minute and break that down. The number 1 source is the internet. And I mean, if it's online, it's got to be true, right? And so there are these self-proclaimed experts because they eat food, so they know all about it. There's people who have blogs, there's nutrition education sites, but they actually have no credentials or understanding of proper nutrition. So let me ask you, the last time you Googled something food or nutrition related, did you take the time to look at their education, their credentials? Was it evidence-based, or was it worked for me, so it'll work for you? The next source was friends. And again, I don't know about you guys, I have some friends who, yes, they're really smart and they know a lot. But I also have friends who think they know a lot. So if I don't know the answer, how do I know what they're telling me is right? And then the last one is coaches. Now, I myself took an intro to coaching course, and it is certified by the Canadian Coaching Association. And the nutrition part of that was very small and really basic. So depending on the coach's background, they may or may not have great advice. But when do you think the last time an athlete dared to question their coach? Do you really know what you're saying? Surprisingly, somebody who specializes in food and nutrition, such as a dietitian, or in this case more specifically a sports dietitian, was almost at the bottom of the list, right above other medical professionals and retailers. So as nutrition students, we asked why. We have nutrition students who have so much knowledge and education that's backed by science. And then we have these athletes who want to perform and are getting these nutrition information from questionable sources. So why don't they just work together? Up until last year at Acadia, we had one intro to sports course, or a sports nutrition course. And if you wanted anything above that, you either had to do an honors or an independent study. So in December of 2013, there was an honors project based around sports nutrition, and that inspired an independent study, which was the pilot program. And this pilot program was designed around students, nutrition students, presenting to the athletes and providing them nutrition knowledge so that they can perform better. Now, I'm not going to say this is the first time there is ever a sports nutrition thesis or honors, but it was the first time one student took another student's research and took it a little bit further to put that into practice. I'm also not saying this is the first time that the School of Nutrition and Athletics collaborated, but this was the first time it was student-led. So that pilot program was the nutrition students, they were volunteers, and it was one big session where we provided information to all the athletes. And from that one session, the coaches expressed a desire that this is a good thing. We want more of this. And that happened in the fall of 2014. So in December of 2014, we got together a group of these sports nutrition volunteers, and this is when I became involved. And I became involved actually just by a casual conversation with one of my professors, saying, you know what, I'm sort of interested in sports nutrition, more or less for my own performance, but I am somewhat interested. So we've been providing these sports nutrition education sessions since 2014, and we've actually built well beyond the university. In such a short period of time, we do provide these sessions to our athletes, but we also provide it to our community. We've provided it to additional schools a couple towns away. We were invited to present to a national wrestling team an hour drive away from where we live. So this increasing desire from the community, including also like local businesses who just have active members. We've presented as young as elementary children, all the way up to recreational adults, to national teams. And so this desire and this growing trend, if you want to call it, from the community asking for these services, the university saw a need that we needed to grow this sports nutrition program. And from there, they put out a call and we've hired a new professor who specializes in sports nutrition. And last year, he introduced a second course, which is advanced sports nutrition. And this year, he introduced a third course. So now we have a progression of courses. And the one we have this year, it's an experiential learning course. So the students that are in the class are paired with a varsity team, and they are their nutrition coach for the entire year, in season and out of season. And we provide very specific, very individualized sports nutrition advice, and we're there for them all year long. Now, the learning we get is beyond just the classroom, is really unmeasurable, because they say you can never learn as much in the classroom as you do in the field. And really, we get the best of both worlds. I have the comfort of having a professor of registered dietitians to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm learning and I'm not causing any harm. But on the other side of that, I also have the experience that I'm dealing with people. People are complex. So I'm dealing with a real situation, real people, and all the complexities that come along with that. Now, in my first year, I remember sitting down at that initial meeting going, what am I doing here? I don't belong because I don't know anything. I can't add value. And just a few weeks later, I did my very first presentation in front of 100 football players, and my knees were shaking, and my voice was shaking. And the best I could do when they asked me any questions was, I really don't know, I'll get back to you on that. But now when I go into those presentations, I have confidence. I know my stuff. I don't look at my slides because I don't need to. I can answer those questions with confidence because I know what I'm talking about. As I get closer to graduation, I try to sit more on the sidelines, and I have those other volunteers take more of a lead. So I'm there more of support for them because they're where I was 3 years ago. They don't have that confidence yet, but they will. Last year, when I was sitting on the sidelines of one of these presentations, where sometimes I do add extra comments, highlight a few points, help them with questions if they need to, somebody said to me, wow, you are clearly the expert. What a leap to go from not knowing anything and not feeling comfortable even answering a single question to being seen as an expert in that field in such a short period of time. And above just gaining this knowledge and gaining this confidence, I've actually gained a lot more through this program. I'm not going to go into all the details, but some of the main ones I want to highlight is professionalism. Because when I'm working within my group, I'm silly, I'm a little sassy from time to time. But when it comes to dealing with my athletes, my coaches, the community, I am an Acadia, I'm representing Acadia. So I have to be highly professional. And maintaining that professional relationship is why we continue to grow. It's why we have more people asking for our services. We're having external schools. We're having people call us from 100 kilometers away saying, can you present to us? And it's because we are professional and we're maintaining that relationship. And for the last 2 years, I've actually been managing our group. And I'm the type of person, I'm your typical type A. I like to take control. It's my baby. I'm going to do it myself. But I had to learn to take a step back because I'm not the only one running this club. I'm not the only volunteer. And I had to make sure they're getting as much out of it as I am. Because if they're not enjoying it, if they're not learning anything, they're not going to continue to do it, and then the program will die. And on top of all of that, I've been very privileged to do research. So I did some research earlier this year with one of my teams, and I was fortunate to present at a sports conference in Toronto, and it was the very first sports nutrition conference ever held in Canada. Now, when I think back to my first year, yes, I had a mild interest in sports nutrition, but now I really have a passion for it. And part of that is working in it for almost 4 years. I've had the experience, I've gained the knowledge, I've gained the confidence. I feel somewhat of an expert. So now I have a passion for this, which it was just a mild interest before. I also feel I have a bit of a lead as I get closer to graduation, and I'm moving out into the workforce shortly, because I have hands-on experience. I have the confidence, I have the knowledge. I've learned so much more than I could just by sitting in a classroom or reading a textbook. And none of this would have been possible if it wasn't just for a few students who said, why don't the nutrition students work with the athletes? And how are we going to make that happen? So again, I realize I've been speaking a lot about sports and sports nutrition, but think about your own program and your own university. Is there something that you see as missing? Is there something that you think, I might want to hop on that train, that looks interesting? And then I'm going to ask you, are you going to make that happen? How are you going to make that change? It's not necessarily leaps and bounds. Sometimes it's just those tiny little steps. And you never know where those tiny little steps are going to lead you. Thank you.